That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Oh, adjusting things, adjusting things. Boink. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Boom. 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 Evening to you, that guy. You're the first one in. So it's not evening comrades, it's evening comrade. Good to see you, though, that guy. Oh, man, you must have had your finger on the button. You were just, like, waiting. You're sitting there being like, come on. Boop. Good evening to you, Anemone. Always a pleasure. Ligon to Z, always a pleasure. You got... This is like the trio right here. You guys are actually near me. You guys actually live near me. We could, like, get together and do damage. Don't you think? Like, we could get together and actually, like, do damage? Huh? That guy, I was refreshing like a madman. Hello out there on TikTok land. How you guys all doing today? What, Midnight Rose, good to see you. I saw a meme about how Marx predicted NFTs in a chapter of Capital about fictitious capital. Good shit. Yep. Absolutely. No, I remember Anemone. I'm just saying that we could, like, form a club. Like a cabal. Right? Right? We could become a gang. Huh? Rove the streets of Toronto. What do you think? Huh? We could become like a bunch of thugs, like snapping. Yeah, we're all working. I think what I need to do, and I think that I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I think the thing I actually need to do is start a once a month meetup. Something I've been thinking about for a long time. And I just don't have a place to do it. But I think it would be as easy as just like, let's all meet at a pub, like on the first of the month, you know? And just have it understood that like on the first of the month at 7 o'clock, let's say, we all just meet. And I think that's what it's going to take, you know? Like this online stuff is nice and it's fun and it's cathartic, right? I think there's a catharsis to it. But when it comes to like actual real organization, I think we gotta actually meet, right? We actually gotta meet. And Fight Back, man, near as I can tell, like Fight Back is just sort of like a book club, you know? Like their name is Fight Back, but it seems like all they do is get together and sort of talk. You know, they don't actually try to do stuff, which I think is weird. So like it's kind of unusual, actually. I find Fight Back to be kind of unusual for that reason. Let's all get together and talk about Marxism and then never actually do anything. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. They really are only that. Doom to Bloom, good to see you. John, what were you thinking about going back to school for? Education. I already have a degree, and so going into education would be like an extra year and a half or 2. And then I would be, you know, job. Then I would job with my job and have a job that I job. So jobby job. And jobbity job and a job drew. That's all. I'm only coming if there is scheming. That's the only reason we would do it. It's the only reason we would do it. Like, we can cry in our cups here. Like, you can come and cry in your cups here. If that's fine. Have a drink, smoke a doob, listen to me, bitch about capitalism, right? Maybe sing some songs or something, right? We could do that here, right now. We don't need to get together to do that. What we need to do is get together. Like, when we're getting together is to plot. Is to plot the downfall of capital. That's what we're doing. Wow, somehow every weekday he's live. Yeah, it's called dedication. This is the grind set that you guys are all talking about, right? I love it. The right wing is all like, these lazy grinder. But then when you actually, like, do something and you actually commit to something, they're like, wow, I can't believe, like, you can't win. You can't win. That's why you shouldn't bother listening to critics. Because there are people in the world who just are going to criticize you one way or the other, right? Like that if you're successful, like it's like how they criticize Hassan, right? Hassan is a millionaire now, and so they're like, oh wow, a socialist that's super rich. Well, so they criticize him that way. And if he wasn't rich, they would criticize him that way. So there's no point. Like, just don't listen to these people. That's all. You mean during work hours? Nope. It is 6 o'clock where I am. I don't know where you are, but it's 6 o'clock right now. Yeah, I know Ronnie McNutt, bud. I'm blown away at the staying power of Ronnie McNutt. Yeah, another Ronnie McNutt. You guys are either bots or Ronnie McNutt was a far more influential figure. You know, in either case, near as I can tell, Ronnie McNutt was a wonderful, wonderful guy. So I hope wherever he is now, he's happy. I hope you guys are all doing well out in the world. Sort of a weird. The Ronnie McNutt thing is really strange to me. I'm surprised it's still around. It's like the Harambe stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm just explaining to you why I'm blown away with it. I'm surprised that it's persisted. I'm surprised that it's persisted. Like I didn't know who this guy was. I had no idea who Ronnie McNutt was. And then I started streaming, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's Ronnie. Oh, Ronnie McNutt." And at first, I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I looked up the story and like found out what it was. Oh yeah, I understand. Haha. Very good, Dylan. The Yeah. So moving on. No point. Hey, Conton, how you doing, bud? So today, honestly, I think the big piece of news that's come out today is from the Wall Street Journal. So TikTok, don't ban me for reading Wall Street Journal articles, okay? I know that you really get up in arms when I start talking about Ukraine, but this is from the Wall Street Journal, TikTok, so don't be banning anybody, right? U.S. warned Ukraine not to attack Nord Stream. The CIA pressed Kiev weeks before explosions sabotaged the natural gas pipelines, bringing Russian gas to Europe. So now we finally, the Wall Street Journal is actually doing what the Wall Street Journal claims it's supposed to be there for, which is reporting, right? The Wall Street Journal claims to be a news organization and claims to report, but when it comes to the Ukraine war, they've been pretty lackluster, right? They've basically been ignoring Seymour Hersh the entire time, basically been ignoring this story all the way up and down, and I think finally they got to a point where they were like, okay, finally the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency warned the Ukraine government not to attack the Nord Stream gas pipelines last summer. Okay, I guess we have to 100% actually report, finally. And yeah, Grinning, I tend to agree with you. Wall Street Journal is always 110% PSYOP. Because to me, the narrative of this piece is it's the Ukrainians that did it. It's the Ukrainians that did it. It's certainly not the United States military that did it. It's the Ukrainians that did it. So finally, I think where the CIA and the intelligence agencies have landed is, okay, we've got to cop to the fact that it's not Russia that blew this up, right? It's not Russia that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, right? We've got to cop to that at the very least. So who did blow it up? Well, if we can't say that it's the United States, which is like pretty clearly who did it, who had all of the incentive to do so, so let's just pin it on the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians are getting their butt kicked anyway, so who cares, you know? Then at least the narrative isn't the United States destroys NATO property, right? And it means that the Western nations don't have a case any longer, right? Weeks later in August, the CIA informed at least 7 different NATO allies that Ukraine had no longer appeared to be plotting to sabotage the pipelines, and that the threat had diminished. Those officials now believe Ukraine hadn't canceled the original plan, but had modified it, selecting a new point of departure and tapping an alternative military officer to lead it. The message, delivered by CIA officials to Ukraine in June, followed a tip the CIA received from the Military Intelligence Service of the Netherlands. These officials said the CIA and other allies had questions over whether Ukraine had the capacity to carry out such an attack, which would require placing explosive charges deep beneath the Baltic Sea. Some European governments still struggle to believe that Ukraine, using a single 50-foot yacht, was able to do so. Here's the line that tips the hand a little bit, don't you think? Some European governments still struggle to believe that Ukraine, using a single 50-foot yacht, was able to do so. It's like, yeah, because they probably didn't, right? Because they probably didn't. It was probably the Americans that did it. It was most likely the Americans that did it, and now they're just trying to pretend that it was the Ukrainians. Weeks later, on September 26th, the pipelines were hit. Ukraine has vehemently denied that it had anything to do with the attack on the pipelines. The exchange of information began in June when Dutch military intelligence officials told the CIA that a Ukrainian sabotage team was looking to rent a yacht on the Baltic coastline. They had to rent a yacht. This is the story. This is the official story, you guys, that the Ukrainian government rented a yacht in order to load it with high explosives and take the yacht. Remember, they're at war when this is happening. They're in war when this is happening. And the Americans are just like chewing bubblegum, just being like, oh, what are they floating out there with that yacht for, I wonder? Oh, the Ukrainians just going out there with a big giant yacht. That's totally normal, perfectly fine. Like, so this is one of these situations, right? This is one of these situations where I really am just like, we're in this phase of capital right now where the capitalists are like, okay, we got to come up with a counter narrative. We can't just admit that we're psychopathic grifters, right? We can't just admit to the entire world that we are just rapacious, child-raping psychopaths, right? So we need to come up with counter narratives and counter ideas that tells the rest of the world, oh yeah, no, we're not overt, crazed, foaming at the mouth, narcissistic psychopaths. There's something else happening. And the thing that they come out with typically is, no, it's not that we're mass murdering psychos, it's that we're desperately incompetent. That no, you got it all wrong. It's not that we're actively working to try to destroy you and your family. It's that we're so stupid and incapable at doing basic organization that it looks like we're just flagrantly disregarding your life. Like, this is essentially where we're at. Over and over again, it happens this way. It's like the housing crisis narrative is a good one, right? What am I supposed to believe about the housing crisis? What is it that we're all told by every mainstream outlet? Oh, the problem is that we didn't build enough houses. So we're admitting baldly in front of everyone that the system of capital is incapable of doing basic planning and projecting for basic things like basic housing. We're just gonna admit that fully. The system of capital fails because it's incompetent. That's the official narrative. And of course, that's to deflect away from what's actually going on, which is that these people are psychopaths and they're hoarding all the housing, throwing people into the streets happily because they want empty apartments to use as investment properties. That's what's actually going on. So between these 2 points, they're just willing to say the system of capital is completely fraudulent and a total failure and incapable of doing the basics of planning in order to build enough housing to deal with the amount of immigration and birth rates that we know exist, but the system of capital refuses to do that. So in very much the same way, the Wall Street Journal is putting forward a narrative. No, it wasn't that the Americans cynically destroyed a pipeline in order to ensure the European Union had to be on the side of America. It was that we're so incompetent and incapable that we allowed Ukrainians in the midst of a war with Russia to get on a yacht that they rented with high explosives and then plant those explosives beneath a pipeline and then blow that pipeline up underneath our noses. We just couldn't have possibly, this is where we're at. That they'd rather admit gross, complete, total incompetence and a complete inability to protect important key infrastructure than admit what is obviously the case, which is that they blew up the pipeline so that Europe had to deal with the United States. That it was an attempt to disconnect Europe from Russia. It failed because Europe still gets its gas from Russia. It just goes through India now. But the enormous, overwhelming disaster that is capital at this stage in the game is just basically being admitted every single day. Like, every day they will release a report to, like, groom the narrative, and the narrative is capitalism is an utter failure. It is incapable of protecting you, your assets, or your interests. And it is not because we're rapacious psychopaths, but because the system of capital itself is such a failure. This is the narrative that they have to choose, because the other one is, yeah, we're stealing your shit on purpose. Like, this is where we're at with these guys. And it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to watch as they just, like, say this stuff and expect people to just be like, oh yeah, they rented a yacht and filled it with explosives, and that's the normal. It's like the Epstein scandal. How we're all just supposed to believe, yeah, Epstein, he definitely took sheets that are meant to tear, specifically when used exactly as Epstein used them, and then used them to kill himself while 2 cops fell asleep and the cameras were off at the same time. Yeah, totally normal. So they're just happy to admit gross, like, criminal level incompetence than admit what is actually the truth. That obviously these people were bribed, that they sent an assassin in and they killed him. Midnight Rose says, I'm more inclined to believe Seymour since he blew the lid off the Iraq War, which I find funny because the West tried to pretend like he's a kooky nobody when he's very, very clearly not. Yeah, like, just don't talk about people. Like, that's one of the strategies that they use. It's the Journal of Wall Street. Whose side am I supposed to believe they're on? Yeah. Also, are we supposed to just forget they were calling everyone a kooky conspiracy nut job for saying it was the U.S. who did it when this first happened? Yeah. Like, basically everything that I've ever said about the Ukraine war has turned out to be true. Like, essentially everything I've ever said about the Ukraine war has turned out to be completely true. And now it's getting really obvious, right? That the people who are still standing there, hey Kevin, how you doing? The people who are still standing there saying that, like, Putin is as bad as Hitler invading because he won. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? We literally have the Russian ambassador, current head of the CIA, on record in a document called Niet Means Niet, saying the United States is fomenting a war with Russia. Here's how they're going to do it. And that's exactly what happened. Like, it's over for these apologists. Like, it's over for people walking around saying that, like, the United States had nothing to do with the Ukraine war. We're just defending a sovereign nation. That's what we're doing. It's dumb. Like, at this point, it's dumb. And you've got to be dumb to think that way. Like, you actually have to be brain off. Evidence is irrelevant. We don't care about facts. We don't care about anything. We just are like, America good. Look, we built a Death Star. That means we're good. Like, that's who you are if you're still talking that way. You're rooting for the Death Star. And like, how dare Russia defend itself, right? How dare they? You know, it's totally fine for us to overthrow the Ukrainian government in 2014 and fund Nazi groups to have them go kill ethnic Russians on the Russian border. That's a normal thing that countries should definitely always be doing 100% of the time. And Putin defending himself against it, that's the bad thing. That's the bad thing. This is what these people sound like. This is where we are. This is where we are, absolutely. Like, Russia has the right to defend itself. We are the ones that have built hundreds of military bases to surround them. And we are continuously in this state of fomenting war around Russia's border. Because the goal is obviously to break Russia apart. That's completely the goal of American foreign policy. And it's insane. It's actually insane. The insanity of the United States cannot be overstated. That the rest of the world is looking at America and going, oh, this place is actually collapsing into a fascist Nazi state. It has actually lost its mind. It's not going to recover. That any hope that anybody had that the Trump election was just some kind of aberration is gone. That Trump opened up this door for a whole slew of other nut jobs. For a whole slew, your Marjorie Tyler Greens, your Lauren Boeberts, your Matt Gaetz, just a whole slew of utter, unhinged, detached, lunatic nut jobs. Like Marjorie Tyler Greene recently said that America is now a communist country. Like, we are talking about a country that has lost its mind completely. And there isn't a single sign, not one shred of evidence anywhere at any moment that it's even interested in coming to its senses. That it's even interested in coming to its senses. The rest of the world is looking at America and going, we have to get away from this. This is a bomb that is going to explode, and we have to take cover and be prepared. And that's exactly what's going to happen. It's exactly what's going to happen. Like, Seymour Hersh, more than half the world's population supports Russia. For good reason. For good reason. Right? Yeah, it's okay for neo-Nazis to burn down a trade unionist building and coup the government by holding government buildings hostage, but Russia, bad. Yeah. Like, America is communist? Goddamn, I missed the revolution. Glory to Comrade Biden. Yeah. Like, it's going to, Bread Cultist, good to see you. It's going to be absolutely wild to watch the decline of the dollar. That's the one. That's the one that I just keep thinking about. The thing I continuously cycle back to, and the thing that my mind continually finds itself going to. And I can't communicate it to anybody. Like, how do you talk about this to regular people who are just living their lives and going around and you know, just existing, trying to do their best, working, right? Like, we're so surrounded. We're living in this complete and total bubble of utter detachment, where we're constantly being told that happiness exists in sacrificing your life to the altar of capital, accruing stuff, getting objects, and more, the society is falling into a total state of decline. I recently saw someone did the work to say what was the average wage, how much did the average worker make during the worst period of the Great Depression. And then, of course, they fixed it all up for inflation and all that, and in modern money, the lowest the average wage or the average earning got for workers during the Great Depression was $85,000. The average wage for people today, the average earnings for people today, $35,000. So we have been existing in conditions that are worse than the Great Depression for a while. And the only reason we're still not aware of it is because all of the negative consequences are invisibilized. That they are made invisible. That's the strategy. So if you get a tent city, what do? You get the cops to clear it and push it onto the outskirts. You get people to stay within their cities. You get them to stay disconnected from what's going on outside of these little hive clusters. They never go into the countryside. They never actually see what's going on. And so you render the homelessness and the fentanyl crisis and all this stuff completely invisible. And if you were to do a comparison between what's happening today and what was happening during the Great Depression, you would recognize that what's happening today is actually worse. People are earning less. People are in more of a state of crisis. There is a larger crisis going on right now. There is a larger crisis going on right now in America than during the Great Depression. And instead of and the crisis is made worse because of the hard work of the CIA to eradicate any organized movement. That all organized movements are under attack. that any movement that gets organized under the banner of socialism or communism gets attacked, its leadership is destroyed. And the idea, and so this has ramped up the fascist elements in the United States. There's no to one another. There's no connection to ideas. There's no honest discussion that actually happens. Right? There's no honest discussion that actually happens. That if you start to mention socialist or communist ideas, immediately you're a genocidal maniac, even though it's obviously bullshit. And so all that's left for America is this decline into fascism. It's all that's left. It's the only option that's been permitted by the system of capital. That capital has eradicated even reforms. It's eradicated even the attempt to reform one another. Communism doesn't work except all the times it did, it has, and currently does. Just because you don't know anything about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Rural people are just as disconnected. I live in the middle of nowhere, and the only people I engage with on a daily basis are family, in person at least, yeah? Well, the atomization, right? The atomization of the culture is so important to the capitalist class. And Eminemy's nailing it, right? We have no third places. Yeah, we've got no third places. Nobody congregates anymore. Church is no longer really a serious thing that people do. Oh, you're wrong, John. It isn't hiding the homeless that prevent revolution. It's the divide and conquer. They went full-blown fascist. Yeah, just like Nazi Germany to pretend everything is fine. Yep. Well, we're not full-blown fascist quite yet. A big part of being full-blown fascist is the acknowledgement that, like, there's a moment where the ruling class says, yeah, okay, we're illegitimate and all that, but too bad we've got the guns and money. And that's when they're full-blown fascist, right? That there is still this, like, neoliberal idea that floats around. That the real true fascists, the people who are just like the Matt Walshes in the room, right? They're not the ones who are holding all the power yet. It will happen. It will happen. Because it's the only thing that can happen. It's the only thing that can happen. That if you clog up all the pressure valves, right? Well, it's going to blow. Like, it's pretty straightforward. And that's where we're headed. And it's got to be stated, right? It's got to be stated that the rest of the world sees it coming. The rest of the world sees it coming. That they know it's coming. And they're not going to hook their wagon to our star. They're not going to say, oh boy, I can't wait to experience this decline into complete and total fascism that America is definitely going into. Like, I can't wait to experience that. The rest of the world is doing everything it can to secure itself and protect itself from our aggression, which is obviously what we're doing. Yeah, they're already passing fascist laws like anti-LGBTQ and even criminalize it with the death penalty. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, Eric. Like, these people are scumbags. But, like, I think what I'm trying to get, like, I'm not trying to counter what you're saying. I'm just saying it gets worse. Okay? It gets worse. A lot worse. Right? Like, there was a period of time in the history of Western civilization where the powerful were openly crucifying people. It gets worse. Significantly worse. And America is going to push it, because that's how America rolls, and that's who America is. Like, we are going to see public acts of violence. Not simply like a protest showing up and then Nazis coming through and, like, opening fire. Not like that. It's going to be like public displays. The state overtly and obviously stating to the people, if you do this, this is the consequence. That if you go through, like, the medieval period, what's called the Dark Ages, like, people literally get locked in cages in public spaces, and people get to watch them just starve to death in public spaces. Like this is your Judeo-Christian civilization, okay? This is your Western civilization. That steadily we've been moving away from these practices, but America is going to do something like that. America is going to do something like that. The public displays of violence, where the state shows the people this is the consequences of what you do, and you're already seeing a little bit of it. Somebody like what's going on, like Julian Assange. The Julian Assange story is a type of this. It's like this, except it's not being done in public. It's being done kind of behind the scenes. But if you're a journalist, or at this stage, there's no such thing as a journalist in America. If you're a propagandist, you take a look at the Julian Assange story and you say, oh, okay, like that's what happens. If you actually do journalism, if you actually do anything that remotely looks like journalism, this is what they'll do. And that's going to start happening to the regular average people. Yep, the prison industrial complex is a good example of this. Like, they're already rounding people up. They're already doing this kind of stuff. And it gets worse. I think this is the thing that I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody pissed off. And I'm not trying to make anybody angry. But, like, it gets worse. It gets way worse. And it's going to continue getting worse. Because the system of capital is not interested at all in reforming itself. There are so many things that it could have already done. There are so many things that it could have already pursued in order to alleviate what's going on. There are a myriad of things that especially after the Occupy movement. One of the things I'm starting to recognize, and I've got to continuously bring up over and over again, I've got to remind myself to bring it up, is the Occupy movement. That the ruling class is trying to eradicate from our memory the fact that the Occupy movement happened. That I have spoken to young kids, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, who don't know what the Occupy movement was. And it was one of the most important cultural moments of my life. Nothing even remotely close to it has happened in America in my lifetime, where thousands and thousands and thousands of people were occupying city centers all across America and Canada. And they were doing so because they understood that the system had decayed, that the language of we are the 99% was an acknowledgement that we live in a class system, that there is an ownership class, a 1% that operates and owns this country. And the ruling class, when that happened, instead of acknowledging it, instead of actually bringing it into, instead of actually attempting to find reform, instead of actually trying to find a way to ameliorate the suffering of the thousands of people who took to the streets, instead of trying to do anything about it, what they have done is just overwhelmed the system with chaos. That's exactly what they've done. They've completely destroyed the narrative that everything now is about diversity issues, right? That they despicably hold up a shield saying, look how we're pro-diversity. Look, we're so pro-diversity, and made the entire conversation about this while plunging those diverse cultures into more poverty. Like, what we live in a despicable country that is doing everything it can to rob us of a future and rob our children of a future. And instead of actually addressing it and actually looking at it, they're just dangling keys in front of us and dumbass Marvel movies, and we're falling for it. We're falling for it hook, line, and sinker. We're all just stupefied. We're all just staring into a screen, being like, did you see what Thor did? Who cares? Oh, they made The Little Mermaid black. Who cares? I can't even begin to tell you how little I care about it. It's the most irrelevant shit of life. And if you're dedicating your life to those issues, it's time to grow up. It's time to grow up. That we're living in this period of time where the society is collapsing into overt and obvious fascism. And instead of actually facing it head on, and instead of actually having grown-up adult conversations with it, we've got psychopaths like Matt Walsh saying, "What is a woman?" and being platformed for it. Like this issue that affects such a tiny, small group of people should not be at the very top of the national conversation. It just simply shouldn't be. It's not a thing that a grown-up people would actually have serious discussions about. Like, maybe it would be an interesting topic for an evening. But the fact that it's become the center of our culture, get the fuck right out of here. It's embarrassing. And again, to circle it back around, the rest of the world sees it. The rest of the world is looking at us and thinks we've lost our minds. That they're looking at the fentanyl crisis. They're looking at the homelessness crisis. They're looking at the wealth disparity. They're looking at the decaying infrastructure. They're looking at the Chernobyl-level incidents that are happening. They're looking at our culture, and they're seeing us talk about trans people. And they're going, oh, these people have lost their minds completely, and they're absolutely right. And there isn't a single shred of evidence to show that we are even interested in coming to our senses. That a rational culture in this moment would be saying things like, we should make education free for people so that we can get an educated populace, so that we can prepare for the next iteration, the next type. You know what we should do is we really got to start investing in the infrastructure for a green economy. That's a rational thing to do. We got to make sure that we don't fall behind in terms of technology and tech research, right? We got to make sure that we're at the cutting edge of all of this kind of stuff as these new emergent technologies begin to move forward. We got to have an educated populace that's able to take care of these things. And you know what we really got to make sure? We got to make sure that everybody's well fed. We got to make sure everybody's got housing. We got to make sure that there's stability across the land. We got to do something about this fentanyl crisis. We got to stop funneling money into spreading fentanyl, but that's not what it's about anymore. It's not about governing anymore. It's not about having a ruling class that actually governs anymore. We are not governed. There is no credible institution that exists in our society any longer. The electoral system, the court system, the police, the legal system, every system that exists in the culture today has no credibility. The banking system. There are no credible institutions remaining. All that exists now is people using these institutions in order to enrich themselves, full stop, period. There is no such thing as a politician that's interested in governing, in a judge that's interested in judging, in a banker that's interested in stabilizing the financial system. None of this exists. 0%. In fact, it's in the negatives. Because people are more than willing to use the political system and to use the banking system and to use the legal system in order to benefit themselves at the cost of those systems. That's exactly where we're headed. And that's exactly where we are. And again, the entire rest of the world sees it and understands it fully and understands that we have lost our minds. We are not trying to improve it. It will not improve. And the response from the rest of the world is going to be utter and total abandonment. And they are right to do so. They are completely right to do so. That when China, Russia, India, South Africa, Brazil, and then Saudi Arabia, the African Union that's emerging, the Latin American Union that's emerging, when these countries all look at us and say, we're not interested in trading with you anymore. We're going to trade with each other. We're not going to take your dollars anymore. It's going to plummet the value of the dollar. That we are going to experience a decline unlike any that we have experienced in this nation. Go grab any item that exists in your house. Find the thing that says made in where. Made in where. Made in where. Made in China. Made in Vietnam. Made in Southeast Asia somewhere likely. Right? Well, all of that's going to stop. Those goods are not coming anymore because we have nothing to trade for them. They don't want our dollars anymore because they're coming to realize that our dollars are based entirely on faith. Our dollar is based entirely on the idea that they will be able to trade something for them. But now they're starting to see that these are the papers of a madman. These are the papers of a demented lunatic. It's as if the Joker showed up and said, here's some Joker bucks. And they're starting to understand, yeah, probably not right. Probably not going to get anything useful from these Joker bucks. Methane asks, what I want to know is when and where can I apply for refugee status for another country? The West is lost. I mean, here's the trouble as I see it with that idea, Methane, that there is no safe place, right? That the Americans are lunatics. There's no telling where they're going to go and who they're going to destroy, right? They've put military bases all around the entire world. There's no safe spot outside of the empire. But the problem is that the empire itself is now collapsing. So if you find the safe place, you let me know. Command Genius, good to see you, bud. My face when the bourgeoisie gives the entire means of production to a socialist nation because they think they'll reform their way out of socialism. Yep, pranked by socialism. Tee-hee. Yeah, like, that's the narrative of the growth of China. That China has essentially, like, got one over on America. Because America's not very intelligent, and Americans are not very intelligent. They're fairly proud of their ignorance. They're fairly proud of their illiteracy. Right? They're proud of how happy, of how ridiculous they are. And we're hitting a brick wall. We're hitting a brick wall with that. The rest of the world is not interested in that anymore. They're not interested in tolerating us. It's not cute anymore. Right? That the figure that best represents the American ethos and who America is Harley Quinn. Beautiful, lovely, funny, a total psychopath that'll kill you if she wants to. And the rest of the world is starting to see, yeah, it's not worth being around this person anymore. It's we gotta make sure that our own people are stable. We gotta make sure that everyone has food and shelter. We gotta make sure that we have an educated populace. Right? We gotta make sure that everybody knows how to read, knows how to write, knows how to do basic math, knows the history of the nation, knows the history of what's going on in the world. Understands what an economy is, understands how to nation build, understands the concept of sharing and collaboration and cooperation. All of these things have been utterly destroyed throughout the West. And we're pleased with it. We're pleased with how stupid we've become. Isaac says, Iran built a tractor assembly line in Venezuela because the U.S. refused to sell parts to Venezuela. Yeah, like, the rest of the world is going to begin collaborating and cooperating on a scale that we haven't seen before, and it's going to happen fast. It's going to happen fast. It's going to happen fast. Yeah, speaking about knowing the history, I've been reading A People's History of the United States because Prax Ben said it was commie propaganda. Yeah, Prax Ben is brilliant. All you got to do is do the opposite of what he says, and you're going to be really smart. Like, this is more like people like that are more or less who I'm talking about when I talk about people who are proud of their stupidity, right? Like if you're watching somebody like Prax Ben, I don't know if you guys know this guy. He's a TikToker who had a whole thing and so on and so forth. Blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. Libertarian. That's basically all you need to know. Like, and these people are proud of how dumb they are. They're proud of how stupid they are, and they're more than willing to display openly their illiteracy and their stupidity, and then believe that they have won somehow, based on how dumb they are. And it's shocking to watch, but it's exactly what we are. And like a really good example of this is Ben Shapiro. I just had like a really kind of I had a realization moment today. Ben Shapiro comes to prominence saying facts don't care about your feelings, which when you pause and think about it, is actually just a total admission of psychopathy. Like, facts don't care about your feelings. Well, yeah, they obviously do. Like, facts care about feelings. Humans have feelings. Humans have emotions, and the emotions that humans have are a very important part and component of the conversation. And Ben is trying to tell us to ignore our feelings because I don't think Ben has feelings. I think Ben, like many capitalists, is likely a psychopath who is happy to spread suffering because it gives him joy to do so. The Dojo says, America is a prime example of distraction and deception. Prime examples of this are the national media coverage, athlete salaries, politics, and art. Yeah. That everything at this moment, every aspect of our lives is about sending the energy back into this dead system of capital. That everything that exists, every shred of media that you absorb, everything that exists exclusively and explicitly to justify the system of capital and to ensure that you continue to put as much energy as you can into that system of capital. That nothing exists around you for any other reason. And the people who are the most deluded, the people who have been the most deceived, are the people who are walking around pretending like that isn't so. And very often you find these people. Good Lord, how stupid conservative can be. I just saw a headline that says Charlie Kirk is afraid of woke catch-up. Yeah, like at this stage in the game with this, all they've got to do is say woke, right? It's like post 9/11. Like there's this great bit that Family Guy had where it was Lois was running for office, and all she had to do was say 9/11. And everybody lost their mind, and she won the election, right? So a similar thing has happened with woke. All you got to do is stand up in front of conservative arguments and say anything you like, conservative audiences, and say anything you like, and then just say, and we're fighting the wokeness, everybody. The woke catch-up, the woke M&Ms, the wokeness. And everybody goes, woke, even though they have no idea what it means. They don't understand what the term even refers to. And when you actually break down what it is they're saying, they're essentially just taking black culture and resurrecting Ku Klux Klan ideology. Like that's essentially what this whole anti-woke thing is. It's basically old school Ku Klux Klan language. People love it. The people of America are huge on it. The Ku Klux Klan is very popular in America, apparently. Yeah, black culture. Yeah, the term woke comes from black community, right? That it was created by black people. Like stay woke, stay aware of the systems of control that exist around, and that conservatives have basically co-opted it in order to do what they're doing with it now, right? So in order to prevent the left from using it, first of all, right? That's a big thing. That happens all the time. That capitalists are very good at this, right? Like the green movement gets co-opted this way. And anything that the left creates, the right attempts to co-opt. And they know that if they can make it their own, then it becomes useless to the left. And they've done this with woke, right? And they've made it, they've turned it, instead of it meaning stay aware of the history of black culture, right? Instead of you can think what you like, bud, but you're going to find that this is accurate. Instead of focusing on the history of black culture in America, which is a history of slavery, right? Instead of a history of slavery, so it's really funny, dude. So you were hearing what I was saying until I started talking about black people. That's interesting. Just pointing it out. Just interesting. It comes out of black culture. It comes out of the black civil rights movement. Stay woke, and it's been co-opted by people who are attempting to destroy the civil rights movement, like completely. I watched this ironic comedy creator, and they've started mocking the anti-woke movement. He made a video where epic bacon got changed to woke bacon. Well, it's not hard to mock the anti-woke people. Like, I mean, straight up, if I was on like a show like the Chappelle Show, right? Like, all you got to do is replace the word woke with the word black in their speeches. It's all you have to do. Like, if you listen to a DeSantis speech, listen to a Trump speech where they're using this word woke, and just replace it with black, and you'll find out pretty quickly. Like, it's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly obvious that these people are using it as a code word, as a way to sidestep around the conversation. Yeah, or replace woke with Jewish. Yeah, it works that way too, right? It's how they're communicating these incredibly racist ideas. It's how they're discussing these incredibly racist ideas with one another. And they've done it by co-opting something that came out of those communities themselves. It's pretty incredible, in fact. Pittsburgh says, when a lot of people refer to wokeness, they mean identity politics, political correctness, and the woke washing of corporate and imperialism. I mean, when you have neoliberal tyrants hiding behind wokeness, it's fair to criticize it. Yeah. Well, because they're being as disingenuous as possible, right? It's like how corporations, suddenly corporations really care about gay people. Gay Pride Month, everybody, right? Like, no, they just want money. Like, that's what it's all about. It's not about showing solidarity or anything. Like, if the culture went full-blown fascist and like the power centers were rounding up gay people and all this, Adidas would just stop celebrating Pride Month. They just wouldn't bring it up. Like, it's how these corporations would act. Like, they don't support gay people. They don't give a shit at all about gay people. They care about money. That's what they care about. Yeah, suddenly Shell loves gay and black people. Don't look up what they do in Nigeria. Yeah, as soon as Target realized that gay people have a bunch of money because they don't have kids, they immediately stopped being anti-LGBT, and now they're woke. Yeah. Like, it's pretty brutal, and in my estimation, and then there's also the angle of it that it's a useful thing to talk about, because it means that you're not talking about how the system of capital is suppressing the working class through economic means. America needs to realize the two-party system does not exist. Both parties submit to corporate oligarchs. Yep. I mean, we've got a great article here for that. Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives widened their lead over Justin Trudeau's Liberals, with vast majority of Canadians wanting change. Like, the whole thing is that Canadians want change. And so instead of saying, oh, what we want change from is a change from this system of capital, right? They'll accept, oh yeah, we'll just change the leadership of the system of capital, right? That the system of capital is fine. It's the leadership of the system of capital that's the problem. That's what's going on. Lockheed Martin also really loves, Lockheed Martin really loves the LGBTQ community, And paint a little pride flag on the side of the bombs that you drop on people. Yeah, they say the next bomb will be dropped by a trans woman. Exactly. But and this is also a complete backfire for the, like, if you are a member of the LGBTQ community, if you are a trans person, if you are of this community, if you are part of this stuff, if you are doing these sorts of things and going out, the rainbow imperialism that's going on is going to backfire in a huge and enormous way. That when you get these rainbow imperialists going overseas and talking about LGBTQ rights and all of this kind of stuff in other countries while murdering their children, well, don't be too surprised when the country of the children you've murdered suddenly start to think that maybe it isn't okay to be gay. Don't be too surprised when those people start to stand up and say, I don't think it is okay. Look what's going on with these Americans, right? That they let men sleep with men and women sleep with women, and now they're coming over here and murdering our kids. Like, if you are in an organization that is LGBTQ plus, you need to make that an explicitly anti-imperialist movement. And it has to be explicit. It's got to be number 2 on your list at the lowest. At the lowest, it's got to be number 2 on your list of demands to end the system of imperialism. Because every single time America goes overseas with a little pride flag on the side of something or a trans flag on the side of something while they murder people, all it's going to do is entrench into the minds of the world community that it is not okay to be gay. Yeah, gay and trans people becoming synonymous with imperialism and war crimes. Exactly. Yeah, you're 100% right, John. Look at the Communist Party of Great Britain, extremely homophobic. Yeah. John, these anti-woke masses aren't because they're saying savvy anti-imperialists. Stop, hold on. John, these anti-woke masses aren't because they are savvy anti-imperialists. Stop giving them credit because it takes nothing to just not, but in... Dude, I cannot understand what you're writing. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I don't understand what you mean. Like, John, these anti-woke masses aren't because they are savvy anti-imperialists. Stop giving them credit because it takes nothing to just not butt in anti-queer laws. Yeah, bud. I love you, bud. I really do. I'm glad you're here, but I feel like something happened there. Are you okay? Did another thing drop? Yeah, the TikTok chat's a bit wild right now. That's to be expected. There's a lot of Nazis on TikTok, man. Like, that's the truth, Dragonfruit. Good to see you. Like, there's just a lot of Nazis on TikTok. That's why I don't really engage, right? I tend to agree with this. I glance over every so often. Robert McKnight writes, "Libs won't be re-election. I feel it will change." I think you're right. I think that the Ronnie jokes, really weird, really weird, like really weird, like. Straight up, I'm gonna say it. If you are one of those people who are making Ronnie jokes, everyone thinks you're creepy and weird. Like you might have like a little group that do that, but everyone else thinks you're very creepy and very strange and very weird. It's just a very weird thing to be doing. I never really understood why you bothered with TikTok at all, but man, I've got people in here who are from TikTok, methane, so it's how it is. You got to do what you got to do. In the U.S., Medicare for All would help minorities and trans more than any other strategy. If you care about one group or another, fight for Medicare for all. Yeah. Another thing that's just not going to happen, right? Like this is where we're at with this kind of stuff. Like, you're never going to, if you rally under a cause, right? Just know that it's hopeless. Like, it's not actually going to happen, right? Like, your cause is not going to happen. It's just not. The American imperial system of capital is built to ensure that it will not happen. There is only one movement. There is only one movement that everyone needs to get under, which is the overthrow of the system of capital. Because the system of capital is the final block. It's the bottleneck for all of your issues. If you want free healthcare, if you want free tuition, if you just want regular old gun laws, if you want normal shit that people want, well, everybody needs to get under the banner of the overthrow of the system of capital. That it's literally the only thing that is ever going to make any of these issues even begin to be responsive. Like, capitalism has said no. You understand? Like, we have stood up and we have said implicitly, hey, maybe we should care about one another, and the system of capital has explicitly said no. It has sent its ghouls out, people like Peterson, people like Shapiro, people like Crowder, to be like, to say, no. This is a you problem. Toughen up. Buck up. Work harder. That's all they're ever going to say to you. That's all you're ever going to get. So stop pretending like you can organize underneath a banner of something. If it's not saying we have to overthrow the system of capital explicitly, it's pointless. You're just jerking off. You're just jerking off. Ugh. Command Genius writes, my dad had a talk with me about trying to avoid the brainwashing of the LGBTQ community. He was saying I'm going to destroy the family bloodline by dating a man. Yikes. My dad has increased supervision to make sure I don't get groomed by the LGBTQ community. Dude, this is so funny. Like, what do you think happens when, like, what do you think's going to happen when you turn 18, right? Like, when you, like, leave the house and suddenly these rules no longer apply and you can do what you like. Like, what does he expect? What does he expect to see happen? Like, it's so bonkers to me. I don't have a membership to the Toronto Star. It's just an article from the Toronto Star. Honestly, I'm afraid for our upcoming elections. The chances for PP to be elected is very high. He's already stated he wants to increase our police budget, tax cuts, all of that. Yeah. Like, we're not going to be immune to this, dude. Like, the fascism is coming. Like, the fascism is coming. That we need to be organized, and we need to get organized, and we need to do it now. That we need to be talking to our neighbors, we need to be getting into groups, we need to be organizing, and we need to be doing it now. The fascists are coming. Like, they're happy. Like, this is what I think is so important for everyone to understand. Like, there is no more appealing to the better nature of these people. These people are fascists. These people are Nazis. They want you to suffer. They are encouraging the spread of suffering on purpose. They're very open about it. They are fine if you die in the streets. That is, in fact, their goal. They want you to suffer. We have to organize against it. Talk to your neighbors now. D. Marie, hey John, I don't know if you already discussed it, but in Oklahoma, the Pride events denied the Communist Party from participating because of some Cold War law. Just saw that today. Yep. Standard stuff, Marie. Like, I don't think I saw this article, but I'm not surprised by it. Like, America is a very rigid country. Like, it talks a big game about how free it is, but it's not. Like, it's not allowing the communists to participate. Yeah, real freedom. True freedom. Content says, it takes nothing to not put in anti-trans laws. Yeah, we've got to stop giving reactionaries undue credit. No, I totally agree with you. Like, I totally agree with you. That, like, these people are trying to cause problems. That's their goal. That's their purpose. They want people to suffer. Like, I really think that we're in this kind of moment where people are just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that the people who keep saying that they want to cause suffering for other people actually want to cause suffering for other people. Well, believe it. Like, get there. Find it. Find the way. Because you got to find that way somehow. The suffering is the point. That the whole idea is to spread suffering. Like, these people are psychopaths. And until we actually acknowledge that for what it is, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. I don't think it'll be scary. It'll be like it was under Harper again. Most people won't notice any substantial change in their lives compared to the current government. Yeah, we'll see about this. I mean, it's just going to be a continuation, right? Like the Liberal government is just a continuation of the Harper government, which was just a continuation of the government before it. Like, they all operate on behalf of the system of capital. Now, more policing solves everything. They had somebody spray paint swastikas in the park the other day. Now they're hiring security for that park. Yep. Anyways, on the good side, my mom has read The Principles of Communism. You're trying to convert her. Good for you, bud. It's funny because you get anti-communists will be like, just run for office like everyone else if your ideas are so good. Like, dude, in many states we legally cannot. Yep. It's like communism fails every single time it's tried, which is why we spend billions of dollars to bomb it. It fails on its own merits, which is why it's so important for us to bomb it. Like that. This is the logic of the capitalist. This is the pro-capitalist logic brain. Billionaire Charles Munger has admitted, yet capitalism causes agony. There's a clip of it somewhere. I think it's pretty blacklisted by social media. Yeah, I actually think that Munger probably hired somebody to get that to scour that, because I've looked around for it myself and I can't find it. Like I think that started to circulate, and that it was probably Munger's own PR team and his own people who have gone throughout the internet and really. I should have been better on that. I should have the moment I saw that clip, I should have tried to find it as soon as possible and save it, because it was a very telling moment. It was literally Munger just admitting everything, just putting it on the table and just being like, yeah, we spread suffering, and people know that if they don't do what we say, they suffer in agony. Like, he just outright said it. And the fact that that's not a headline, right? The fact that that's not widely reported should tell you everything you need to know. Midnight Rose says, at least we're free to have different people in politics, unlike Cuba. Cuba doesn't allow capitalists. Yeah, and America doesn't allow communists. Just shut up already. Yeah. Yeah. And the, like, I don't know. Like, I don't, why would a rational nation allow Nazis to run? Like, it just seems like this whole good speech beats bad speech kind of naive, childish narrative that comes out of Joe Rogan. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, it doesn't work that way. Sorry. All you do is get all the Nazis together, and the Nazis are willing to communicate through violence. What's funny about America right now is we have less purchasing power than the Great Depression in the 1930s, yet we're all willfully ignorant and complacent. Yeah, I think that there's just a lot of hope right now. Like, if I were to really try to peg what I actually think is happening, it really is that I think the majority of people are like, still are in this place of like, well, they can't be evil, can they? Like, they can't be this crazy, can they? They can't be totally unhinged psychopaths, can they? Yep. Like, yes, they can. Yes, they can. They can be completely unhinged. They can be totally unhinged. And they are. Like, they are completely unhinged. Like, there are so many things that would be extremely easy to do. Like, here's a real good one. That what do I got here? Where is it? Yeah. So the Ford government is sitting on $22 billion in excess funding. It's just not using it, right? Literally has $22 billion. It just chooses not to use it. So with that amount of wealth, you could eradicate student debt. You could literally build a fund to ensure that people get free education with this kind of money. Like, it's grotesque. And why do they have this excess funding? Because they're actively strangling the social safety nets. They're actively strangling the healthcare system. They're actively doing it on purpose so that they can privatize it, which they're doing. Like, and I think people just don't want to face the reality that we are ruled by unhinged psychopaths. They want to believe that, like, well, this is the system just working, and so we'll vote them out next time, right? Forgetting that they're just going to vote in another unhinged psychopath, right? The society is in, like, a massive decline. A swift one, too. It's like line goes straight down. Because, and we're choosing it. We're choosing it as a people. Like, we want it to happen. We're looking forward to it, I think. Yeah, free to be poor, free to be homeless without health care, and if you complain, we'll send the police with batons to beat the shit out of you. Yeah. Midnight Rose, I feel bad for Jordan Peterson because I feel like he does have good intentions at his core, but he's doing it all so wrong. I used to think that way, Midnight Rose. I don't think that way anymore. I think Peterson was always a grifter. He comes to prominence by lying about the bill that the Liberals were passing. Right? I forget the name of the bill, but it was like C something or other. And he was talking about how it was forcing him to change his language and all this kind of stuff. It was total bullshit. It was a complete lie, totally fraudulent. So it gained traction amongst the Nazis and the far right because the Nazis and the far right don't care about what the truth is, right? They care about what's offending their fragile egos. And Jordan Peterson basically just lied to them. And so everybody goes under his banner. And then, of course, Peterson's entire ethos, his entire narrative is you're the best, you're the greatest. If you're rich, it's because you're good. Like this whole hyper individualism, right? The worship of the individual is in the worship of the self. Like if you really want to understand the second pillar of the decline of Western civilization, which is the worship of the self, then you want to study Jordan Peterson. Because Jordan Peterson's entire ethos is about the decline of Western civilization and the worship of the self. Like everything he says to do is causing the decline of the West. Like if all you do is hyper focus on yourself and reject cooperation, collaboration, any idea, any analysis of institution, any analysis of society at all, and just say grind set, do yourself, buck up, lobsters. You're just willfully ignorant. Worshipping money, worshipping yourself, plunging yourself down the path of total self-destruction. Like, even if you're successful, even if you get the money and get all the stuff, like this is the thing that's so embarrassing about guys like Peterson. Like they get everybody hyper-focused on stuff. Like Peterson keeps showing up wearing shiny suits and Elon Musk ties and all this stuff. Well, hate to break it to you guys. Did you know that we all die? Did you all know that the end point of all of this is that you die? That all of your accruing of stuff and all of your mass accruing and all of the betrayal and the agony that you put yourself and others are into, right? It all just turns into a big fart in the end. That like all of the suffering that you're inflicting on everybody is for naught. It's so that you can have a big house that just ends up being your tomb. Like we're a very embarrassing people. We're a very, 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 very embarrassing people, and nobody is more embarrassing than Jordan Peterson. Nobody. Like when I first encountered him, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's just like a self-help guru, and I rather found his sort of kick in the pants sort of stuff sort of helpful. But the more time you spend with him, the more embarrassing he gets. Because he's functionally illiterate. He doesn't know anything about the world around him. He's not very well regarded by his own community, by his own peers. Don't really regard him very well. He's simply a prominent figure because he tells people what they want to hear, which is that they're rich because they're good. That's it. Like that's it. That's his whole shtick. And it's embarrassing. And the entire rest of the world is rejecting it. And is going to continue rejecting it. Methane says, this is all a natural result of what happens when you reward the ones who lie the best and punish the truth. Yeah, the incentives are all upside down and backwards. Yeah. You're misled by the worst criminals. Yeah. And this is why I actually think Pierre Poilievre wins this next election. That what really makes him different, what makes him different than Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole, is that Pierre Poilievre is a much more effective liar. That Andrew Scheer wasn't a liar. Andrew Scheer believed in what he was saying. Aaron O'Toole wasn't really lying, and in fact was trying to pull the party back closer towards the truth. Right, towards the center of Canada, right? Pierre Poilievre understands fully exactly what it is, what his base and what Canadians want, which is they want an effective liar who tells them comforting lies. That's how Justin Trudeau became elected. You'll remember he told very effective lies and lied to everybody about what his intentions were. Pierre Poilievre is going to become the prime minister on the same principles. Lie. Tell big, enormous, full-blown lies that you know are lies. Tell them well and commit to them. And that's exactly what Pierre Poilievre does. Pierre Poilievre knows he's lying. He understands the lies he tells. He's very skillful at lying, and Canadians are going to reward him for it. Because that's who we are. We love liars. We love liars. And the better the liar, the more we love them. Yeah, don't forget that Jordan Peterson is a full-blown Nazi since he plagiarizes and praises Hitler all the time. Yeah, I've seen that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, look, Peterson's an oddball. Like, he's a weirdo. There's a reason why he gets funding from the corporate state. Is Pierre Poilievre the reason why my dad is homophobic? My dad is a huge conservative, and only recently has he been homophobic. I bet you your dad has always been a homophobe. It's just now it's becoming more serious, right? Like now his son is involved. I think that's all it is, Command Genius. Is that like you're telling me that you're experimenting, you're a young kid, you're doing all that kind of stuff. Well, your dad was probably always a homophobe, but it's just now he has a reason. Right? Now he's like, no son of mine is, right? Like that kind of thing. So it's that's classic conservatism, right? Classic. Like if I feel like if you're not a homophobe, can you even be a conservative? What is my opinion of America in the post-World War II era versus today? I mean, the biggest difference is actually the people. That the people of America in the post-World War II era were demanded some kind of compensation. They demanded the government to actually do something for them. That post-World War II, like people fought a war. Like people, you watch a show like Band of Brothers, right? And like people went through this like meat grinder, and they come home to America and are basically told, okay, get back to work. And most of them said, go fuck yourself. Like, get fucked. Get utterly fucked. No. Like, no. That's not what we're going to do. We demand some kind of change. We demand it. And the people of America got big changes. They got big changes. And they did it by surrounding the halls of power. They did it by going to the halls of power and saying, pass Social Security, or we're coming in there. And today's Americans are just like fat and mentally ill and mainly destroyed. Like mainly destroyed. That like the people of America post World War II were educated, they were disciplined, they had a sense of the importance of community building, of building a society, right? Today everybody is just so atomized and destroyed that I am quite serious when I say that what we are headed for is actually going to be more akin to something along the lines of the 100 Years of Humiliation in China. That the population of America is going to be hooked on drugs. It's going to be completely disenfranchised. It's not going to have access to basic assets. It'll be a rentier culture, mainly. Everyone will be hypnotized by these phones, which is just another type of drug, and everybody is going to be miserable, grinding a subsistence living, and be told that this is natural, that this is just the natural course of things, and this is the end of human history. We can never do any better, and I don't think it is going to get better. By the way, like I think this is pretty much it for America. That you take a look at something like the fentanyl crisis, right? And I don't know how you can look at the fentanyl crisis and think that you live in a serious country. Like the fentanyl crisis is an enormous, amazingly huge crisis that has huge systemic issues tied up all over it, and we refuse to even acknowledge it, let alone do anything about it. And you can't build a society this way. Like, you can't actually build a society this way because the system of capital is not interested in building a society, which it's been explicit about. It's been very explicit about how disinterested it is in building a society, right? You literally have, like, the original slew of neoliberals outright said there is no such thing. So if there's no such thing as society, then you don't need to look out for one another. You can destroy one another. It's all just about extraction and abandonment. That's what it's all about. And you're seeing it. And you're seeing it. And and the biggest difference, really, I think the biggest difference that exists post-World War II versus today is that post-World War II, the CIA was just getting started. Right? Like post-World War II, the CIA was just being created. It was a fairly small organization, right? That had a limited scope of power and didn't really have like a big kind of thing going on in the post-World War II era. Well, now the CIA is an enormous state apparatus that operates as a shadow government, that has a finger in literally every pot and is doing everything it can in order to destroy anybody even saying, hey, maybe we should do something nice for one another, right? That in today's environment, somebody like Mr. Rogers would be considered a communist that needs to be removed from the airways, right? Mr. Rogers would get shadow banned. Why? Because Mr. Rogers says share with one another, right? Which is communism, as far as anybody should be concerned. So, to me, the major difference between post-World War II and today is that the enemies of Americans are way more equipped. They're way more equipped. They're stupid. They're just as stupid as they've always been, right? But they have way more funding. They're way more equipped. They're way more prevalent. They're just fundamentally stupid in everything that they do. Like, we could take half of that funding and create a civil society. Right? But that doesn't benefit the capitalist class, so it doesn't happen. 1000% says Pierre is all about his real estate gains like Trudeau and is itching to lower interest rates quick. Yeah, Kanye West was right when he said we're the generation of new slaves. I mean, it's... People don't really understand that the New Deal was the aberration. Right? The New Deal was the aberration. That was what was strange. Right? That was what was unusual, was the New Deal. And that, look how swiftly they dismantled it. Look how quickly they've dismantled it. Right? And it's and again, I've said it several times this stream and I'll keep saying it, it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. And it's going to get like right now, I think that if you're a child and you have the mental capacity of a child, you can still believe that everything's fine. So if you're someone like Ben Shapiro, right, who's essentially disconnected from reality, who basically lives in a bubble, who was born into wealth and privilege, you can still sort of believe that everything's fine and kind of buy into this idea that you just need to work hard and you'll be successful, right? But the society is going to decline to such a degree that even those delusional children are going to begin saying, whoa, what's going on here? Like, that if you genuinely want to believe that a guy like Shapiro isn't a Nazi, that he is actually just a guy who's trying his best, well, then what I would expect from those sorts of people is that when they see something like the fentanyl crisis, they would go, whoa, what is going on with the fentanyl crisis? Like, holy cow, how are these drugs getting in? Oh, it's the CIA funneling it all in. Oh, shit, we got to do something about that, right? We got to do something about the fact that we're going overseas and growing poppy in Afghanistan and then harvesting those poppies and turning it all into drugs to ship over here into America and elsewhere. Like, we're living in this enormous period of mass decline, where the institutions that are around us have betrayed us utterly, to an individual, to the clerk that deals with just who gets access to goods, to the quartermaster, to everybody, right? And the U.S. blames it on Mexico and China as usual. Yeah, that's how it works. That's how it works. Projecting, right? Projecting. That's the classic, right? That's the classic. When a conservative stands up and starts talking about something, they're usually just projecting, right? Like, they're usually just projecting their own fears, their own concerns. It's like how the biggest homophobes usually end up being gay, right? Like the harder you're fighting and the harder you're getting out there and the more you're organizing and the more you're actually putting the energy into being like, it's being gay is bad and oh my God, we got to fight against these bad, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve and all this kind of stuff. Well, it turns out those people are usually gay, right? The legislators that are the ones that are putting forward the bills in order to get rid of the gay agenda and all this kind of stuff, those are the ones that get caught in the gay bathhouse. Like, it's... Projection is like a natural, normal, human thing that we do when you're growing up and when you're pretty basic. And conservatism itself as an ideology is pretty basic, right? Like it's very much an idea that I'm good because I'm here. Like I'm good, therefore I'm rich. Forgetting that like it's completely fucking random. Like, it's totally fucking random and without meaning. Like, you're rich because you happen to be that way. And you should be quite grateful for that. You should be quite grateful that you were randomly generated into a family that had a lot of wealth. But they're not. They're not grateful for it. Hey, Andre, how you doing? How you doing? What's going on in the chat, I wonder, in TikTok? Yeah, unbelievable. Really unbelievable stuff. Like, I don't get it. I don't get the Ronnie McNutt stuff. Like, it's... I mean, I got it at first, but, like, I'm surprised it's hung around. I'm surprised it's been around. It's, like, turned into the new Harambe. Leon, conservatives are walking masses of pathology because they don't even believe in a self-examined life. I mean, there is a bit of that, isn't there? Like, it's... That when it comes time to do self-analysis, they all fall into this, like, Jesus talk. That instead of, like, examining their own lives and finding some kind of self-analysis, it's all about, like, what's God gonna think, right? They project outward so much that they have to project an image of a being that is definitely more powerful than they are, and then project their opinion of themselves through the lens of this being that they themselves imagine. Like, that's wild. That's wild to think about. That there's this whole idea of God's judgment, and there's this whole idea of all of these, and it seems like they can't actually just say, wait, what do other people think of me? How do other people perceive me? How, it's wild that a person would say, how does this person I'm currently talking to view me? That they can't seem to be able to do that, but they can imagine a God that fills that role for them. It's the most disrespectful shit I've ever heard of in my life. That I'm not going to respect the person who's standing in front of me, but I'll definitely respect some invisible creature I myself am responsible for creating. Like, it's worship of the self. It's all it is that I can't respect other people, but I can respect my imagined version of a God. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty fucking crazy. Isaac says, I live in South Central LA in the 1980s when Reagan launched his war on drugs. Streets were flooded with drugs. Interestingly, this is when they were using drugs to fund the Contras in Nicaragua. Yep. No, I suspect that there is a book out there like it, but I'm yet to stumble across it. So maybe I'll put it into the universe and it'll circle back around on me. But I bet you that there are books that have been written about the American drug trade. That the CIA are basically drug runners. Like, I've seen enough to be able to say that with confidence. That the CIA makes a good deal of its money and and manipulates societies through the spreading of drugs. Yeah. Yeah, a God that happens to agree with all their prejudices too. Yeah, fancy that. Methane says, don't worry, soon we'll all have social credit scores and can rank each other objectively and never have to self-reflect again. then you know you're a better person than your neighbors for sure. We already have social credit scores. It's just called the credit score. We already have that. Like, that's what's so funny when people come in here and they're like, the Chinese social credit score. I'm like, what are you talking about? We have that. We've had that for a long time. Like, credit scores are like how we judge one another. Oh, he doesn't have a good enough credit score to get a car or a house. He must be a bad person, right? He didn't prove himself to the system of capital enough. The hierarchy really is in place so that we can really understand who amongst us is more competent, because that's what's really making the decision about who climbs the hierarchy is who's the what's the most. Yeah, not to mention the social credit score isn't even real. Well, the social credit score in China, it does exist, but anytime I've looked into it, it's the most banal shit you've ever heard. It's like somebody committed banking fraud, and so they give him like a ranking on this social credit score system that says he's not allowed to commit banking fraud anymore. Like, that's basically what it's for. It's like, oh, this guy committed a crime, and so we're going to give him a score that says he committed the crime so that people know that he's committed a crime. Maybe don't get yourself into a position with a criminal. That's basically the whole point of the social credit score. And it's for really banal shit. Like, really, 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 really banal shit. Like, this idea that it's like the Chinese state is finding out if you wrote something on TikTok that was negative about the Chinese government, they're definitely going to say, like, none of that is real. It's nothing. Yeah, the social credit thing entirely has to do with banks and businesses. Yep. Like, it's. But once again, like, America telling lies. What? That doesn't sound like the America I know. That doesn't sound like the America I know. The America I know would never tell large-scale, egregious lies. America is a place of truth. Truth, justice, and the American way. Don't you know that we here in the West are incapable of telling lies? It's physically not possible. And the reason why we're incapable of telling lies is because if we say it, then it's true. What's my name? My name's Jonathan. That's my name. Say my name, say my name. There's nothing right about it. Ah, you're right. Disaster girl, I apologize. To you most of all. I forgot about liberty. Right? There's truth, liberty, and the American way. America! America! I really think that people are going to look back on all the, like, crazed... Like, we already kind of do this to a certain degree. The hyper-patriotism, right? The, like, bald eagle wearing a cowboy hat and shades, smoking a cigar, with two big muscle arms holding, like, AR-15s on a tank that's, like, ramping off of an American flag that's, like, shooting fireworks all around it. America! You know, we already do kind of make fun of this, like, overwrought, obviously compensating, right? Like, no one is that patriotic for their country. That if you are like that and you are like, if you're walking around wearing a shirt that is an American flag, you're compensating for something. That there's like a compensatory sort of aspect to it. And I feel like America is basically like that. That, like, after 9/11, it was really obvious, right? Like, something happened in America that was kind of like the equivalent of something America does in countries every single day, right? So two planes hit some towers, which is like kind of the equivalent of what America does everywhere all the time constantly. And every American all at once was like, gotta pull out the American... You know who made a lot of money during that period of time was American flag manufacturers. I bet you if you were an American flag manufacturer, you were like, how do we make it so that people, maybe Oh, guys, I did it. I cracked the code. It was the American flag manufacturers that were behind 9/11. They were the ones that did it. Big American flag. They were like, how do we get people to buy 1 million American flags? I've got it. And they backed Osama. They backed Osama bin Laden. And Osama bin Laden flew those planes into the towers. And they all made $1 billion. Yeah, that's what it was. Big American flag. The part that I find so fascinating, this is from Eric, the same people who say don't trust the mainstream media, they will buy in every single lie that the empire says about foreign countries, especially communist ones. Yeah, that was... I had a hilarious conversation. Like, in retrospect, there's a fellow in here yesterday by the name of Jonas. His first sentence to me was that I was a despicable person because of this flag here, right? And he was doing all the CIA talking points and all this. And then I started talking to this guy, and about halfway through the conversation, he mentions that he thinks the CIA killed JFK. And I said to him, so you think the CIA is a powerful enough organization to assassinate an American president and get away with it, but they're 100% telling you the truth about the organization they were created to destroy? Like, we love being stupid. We just do. There's something about it. There's something about it that we're just so amazingly happy. I guess it is ignorance is bliss, right? Ignorance is bliss. We just love being stupid. And we don't really find joy in pursuing anything even remotely close to intellectual. It's like why we love sports so much. Did you see that guy? He hit that guy. He hit that guy so well. That guy got hit so well and the other guy went down. Yeah, he went down. Yeah, he wasn't as good as the other guy. That's what it is. Yeah. Did you see the sports game? That guy kicked the ball better than the other guy. That guy's the best ball kicker that the world's ever seen. I don't think that guy's the best ball kicker. Remember that guy back in 20 years ago? Well, 20 years ago, the game was different. You know, the ball kicker was different. He was a different ball kicker then. He was playing with different ball kickers. Yeah, but do you think if that ball kicker was alive today, he'd be as good a ball kicker as the other ball kicker was a ball kicker? I think he wouldn't be, you know? I think he would be a ball kicker. Like this, we love it. We love how dumb we are. We're so into it. We're super into being stupid. We create an intellectual discourse around being stupid that makes being stupid sound smart. That's what we've done. That, like, you know, you ask a question like that and you really gotta, you know, what do you mean by being? What do you mean by alive? You know, these are the important things that we need to distinguish when we're having these conversations. Like, just make being fundamentally stupid sound smart. That's what America does. And we love it. We love it. We love delving into just the dumbest possible things that we can discuss. And trying to prove one another that we're super smart at being stupid. Midnight Rose says, I see so many people where I work wearing American flags. Everything from these colors don't run, they reload, to Smokey the Bear shirts saying, only you can prevent socialism. It's nuts. You know what's so funny about the Smokey the Bear campaign is widely regarded to be an enormous failure amongst fire prevention people. Because what fire prevention actually does is it sets up for a much larger wildfire. So what you want is small wildfires, because wildfires are part of the natural system. And if you tell everybody to only you can prevent forest fires, well, all you do is make it so that you get a real rager later on. And so it's completely... Like, to finish this analogy, right, only you can prevent socialism. So if you prevent socialism, right, for long enough, what do you end up with? You end up with a revolution. That's what you end up with. Which is exactly what JFK said, which is probably why the CIA shot him. And of course, a ton of shirts honoring our veterans who went and killed poor people and foreigners. Yeah. Support our troops. The dojo says, I was raised Catholic. I'm so sorry to hear that. And capitalist also. In Pennsylvania. I'm 25 now, and you are the first communist I've ever opened my eyes enough to agree with. Wow, the dojo. I feel special. What a special... I feel like we have a special connection now. Do you want me to give you a little kiss on the forehead? I could give you a little peck. Just like... I just like little pat. Be like, bless you, my child. Right? Like a little... We should hug. Do you want a hug? Have a little like... It's nice. That's nice what you just said right there, bud. I appreciate that. I know that I'm kind of taking the piss out of it, but I do appreciate it. Nova Scotia communist writing something in Russian, I believe that is. Is that Russian, bud? Big Fiberglass doesn't want us to eat asbestos. Well, I'm going to eat all the asbestos I can then, Rose. That'll show Big Fiberglass. That's right. No big corporation's going to tell me what I can and cannot eat. My body, my choice. More asbestos for me. I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm in a stupid place. That whole stupid conversation that I just had made me feel stupid. So, yeah, here's a good one. I have bad news. Communists will need to go to the gulag when we take power. Yeah, I mean, that's a normal thing to say, isn't it? That's a completely normal thing to say, coming out of the mouth of a normal person who's definitely not normal. Do you think the Jews are plotting against the West? This is the most embarrassing shit I think I've ever read, bud. Like, no. Like, no. First of all, like, there's not enough of them. Like, let's actually pretend as though this is a serious thing. Let's pretend for a minute. Like, let's wade into the weeds of overt, obvious ignorance and stupidity, and really, like, think about what this would entail in a serious way. One, there's not a lot of them, right? That, sure, there are Jews that exist in the banking sector and the legal sector and all of this. But what the system of capital does when things get rough is it finds small minorities in order to scapegoat, to focus the attention of the populace away from the system itself, that the problem is the system of capital, and so they offer up a lamb. I love this. Farmer man, communism doesn't work except all the times it does. Maybe you want to work on the spelling on that, bud. Have you met people who experience communism? Yes, I've met lots of Chinese people. They're quite happy. How many subreddits do I moderate? I don't. I don't have the patience for that, Cam. Thanks, bud. I work a full-time job, my man. Yeah. They put cotton candies in the walls and tells us not to eat it. What do they think we are, children? That's right. God damn it. I'm gonna eat all that cotton candy. Nobody's gonna tell me I can't. I have the freedom to do so. Because I'm an American, God damn it. Yeah. What a ridiculous. I know 3 people from the Soviet Union. They, like many others, left as soon as the borders opened. Yeah, bud. I'm not a post-communist, right? Like I'm not a post-communist. I'm a communist. Like, I know lots of people from the post-communism era. Did you know? Thanks, Holly. I appreciate that. Did you know that we've done polling in Russia? Did you know that? I've got the poll right here. It's a wonderful Gallup poll. You can find it. It's easy, right? You can just type in polling and communism. It's a Gallup poll, right? 60% of Russians want to return to communism. Like, oh, I know some people who left the Soviet Union. Okay, cool. Good for you, bud. 60% of people want to return to the Soviet Union. That's what the polling data says. Like that's what the polling data says. So, would I live in North Korea? I mean, I don't speak the language. Like this is where the whole like why don't you move to other? It doesn't make any sense the moment you think about it, right? Yeah, capitalism and democracy is cringe. Just look at modern day Russia. I mean, capitalism, yes, I tend to have a pro-democratic sort of approach, but okay, that's great. So they want to talk about what happened to Russia after capitalism was introduced. Yeah, spoiler, it was fucking horrible. Yeah, I don't blame them for leaving after the collapse. Yeah, like that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? Like, yeah, people left after capitalism came in and the Soviet Union collapsed. Like, yeah, obviously. Like 60% of people in the Soviet Union, in Russia, want to go back to communism. So what do we got? So 66% of respondents want to return to the USSR. Or do you regret the collapse of the USSR? 66% of respondents said yes. Like, it's one of these things that you see a lot from capitalist people, like people who are happy with how dumb they are. It is they refuse to acknowledge, like, this was easy to find, right? Like there's just like no sense of like, I wonder what the people of Russia think about communism. Why don't we just type into Google, polling on communism in Russia, enter. That doesn't exist in the ethos of the American mind. Communism's bad in the just ask people in Russia about it. They're so confident. It's the confidence that always kills me. It's the confidence that always kills me. Like how confidently they want to be wrong. And how confident they are when they're so obliquely, obviously, falsifiably wrong. But they could finally get pineapples in their grocery stores all year round. Think of the pineapples! Yeah. There's plenty of videos of people in Russia or former Eastern Bloc countries being interviewed and talking favorably about communism. And they're so ignorant, they don't want to see it. Yeah, because they're not even seeking it out. They're not even seeking it out. Like, what we get is we just get a guy that comes in and says, well, then go talk to the Russians about what happened in communism. So, okay. And then you do, and they're more or less favorable about it. And interestingly, the people who are not, the people who are on the other side, who are like, no, I think what's happening now is okay. It's not like they're standing there saying, communism was terrible. They're saying, like, communism was different, and that was a different idea, but we're doing this now, and I think that this is working out. That's more or less their opinion, right? But conversely, on the other side, the people who are saying we need to get back to communism are like, capitalism is a disaster. It completely fails. So it's pretty clear which way the country wants to go. Interestingly, 75% of Ukrainians would like to go back to communism. So much for this. The lowest that you get is, 41% in, like, Slovenia? Oh, yeah, Pizza Hut. Yeah. It might destroy their worldview, and they're more scared of that than anything. Yeah, this is the thing about fundamentalism, right? That capitalism in this iteration at this moment is a fundamentalist religion. It can't be anything else. It's not an economic system. It's not it's not really a philosophy, right? It's a system. It's a religious system that people adhere to as if it is a religion. That money is God. That the self is more sacred than anything, and that stupidity is the Holy Spirit, basically. So they're replacing God with money. They're replacing Jesus with themselves. And they're replacing the Holy Spirit with stupidity, and that's the unholy Trinity, and it's a fundamentalist religion. And the trouble with fundamentalist religions is that if you can find a little crack in the armor, or if you as the believer perceive a crack in the armor, then the whole thing falls apart. So they can't accept things, right? They can't accept reality. They can't accept countervailing views. Because the moment those countervailing views become real in their mind, then it breaks the entire system apart. That, like, the only way that you can maintain a worship of money and a worship of yourself is if you remain completely ignorant. And the moment that you stop wanting to be dumb, the moment that you want to actually be an intelligent person, well, that's the moment that you're going to stop worshiping yourself. That's the moment that you're going to stop worshiping money, and the whole system's going to come collapsing down around you. And it works in other ways too, right? Like the moment you realize that money is not God, the moment you realize that you are not the center of the universe, that you yourself is not the most sacred thing that exists, well, then the whole thing falls apart. Then you've attained a level of intelligence that goes beyond what the system of capital can bear, right? Yet life expectancy fell by about 8 years in Russia in the 1990s when they adopted capitalism. Oh yeah, like it was not a good time. Child prostitution came back, right? Like we've got street interviews with children as young as 11 talking about how they became prostitutes in 1990s in Russia. Like it's a brutal time. It's a brutal time. Communist China, age of consent is 14, bro. Same here, dude. Like this again, buddy. This is kind of what I'm talking about. You got to start Googling stuff before you make these statements. Like you got to go to Google and type in what's the age of consent in Missouri, what's the age of consent in Nebraska. Right? You're going to find that 14 is the most common number. You're making money on this live? No, I'm not. How am I making money on this live, dude? Like, occasionally people give, like, a diamond or something, right? And you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what communism actually is. Like, communism is not people be poor, right? Sorry, guys, 1 second. My dog. My dog. I know, buddy. I know. I know, dude. I know. I love you. I love you, dude. You're a good boy. Oh, guest starring. Am I giving all my TikTok money to Daddy Trudeau? Embarrassing. What an embarrassing thing to say, dude. I think Trudeau is a floofy haircut that reads cue cards from the fossil fuel industry. Like, maybe ask the question, what do you think of Trudeau? That would be a smart way of asking that question. I Googled your mom last night, bruh. Creepy. In the U.S., it's 16 to 18 state by state. It depends on the state. Like, how to get out of Sansera? I don't know what Sansera is. TikTok, man. TikTok's wild. Thanks, Matthew. Yes, you're a cute little guy. Aren't you the cutest? Aren't you the cutest? Did you know that everybody loves you? Did you know that I love you? Did you know that? Yeah, you're the greatest. Okay. Yeah. All right, buddy. You're a good boy. Yes, there's a book called The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein that talks about disaster capitalism and how capitalism often benefits from natural disasters and destruction. Well, and she also posited in that book, and I think it's absolutely true, that the disaster capitalists we're beginning to find ways to create disasters in order to benefit from them, right? Speaking of creepy, I want to hug your pug. That's not creepy, Methane. Everybody wants to hug the pug. Everyone wants to hug the pug. I'm a capitalist and I love your dog. Well, yeah, see? There are things that supersede all of these isms, right? And I hope one day that you will come to realize that capitalism is an exploitive system that oppresses everybody naturally. And of course, I'm the name of the channel is the Canadian Commie, right? There's this here, Canada, the chakras, of course. And of course, I believe in communism, right? I think we should support systems that work, systems that have proven to work, and systems that are continuing to work while our system of capital falls into decline. Like, I think that we should definitely do these things. I think it's wise. it's at least wise of us to begin asking what alternative models exist in the world, and what alternative viewpoints and what ideas can we actually focus on to get us out of this pretty sharp decline that we find ourselves in. And like right now, if you're not at least saying that the system of capital needs to be reformed, if you're not at least saying that, then you're probably just a fascist, right? Like, you're probably just a fascist. And I don't think anybody needs to tolerate that. We don't need to tolerate fascists in our midst. See, this is again the worship of ignorance, Danny. I work a full-time job. Thanks, Danny. Maybe get literate, right? Don't make assumptions like this, right? It's a bad idea. Have I heard of the Holodomor? I would like to ask Tessa. I'd like to ask for your source on that. Okay, that's what I would like. Is Trudeau a fascist? No, but he's a liberal, which almost is bad. I'm not a communist, but a national syndicalist. But what you're saying is based. Thank you, TikTok Bad. I appreciate it. The government claims welfare for the capitalist class via force and theft. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Are you Canadian Stalin? Dude, wouldn't that be amazing if I ended up being Canadian Stalin? No, I don't think I can make that claim to fame. Stalin led an incredible life. At this point in his life, I think Stalin had already been in prison twice. He was a train robber. One of my favorite Stalin facts was that the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks got together, and the Mensheviks outnumbered the Bolsheviks at that time, and they said no more robbery to fund the revolution. And Stalin and Lenin agreed and then continued robbing trains anyway. National syndicalism is a fascist ideology, by the way. Oh, is it? There's so many new things coming out, and they're finding new fun ways to just call themselves Nazis. National syndicalism. Far-right adaptation of syndicalism to suit broader agenda of integral nationalism. National syndicalism developed in France, of course. A revolutionary current that seeks to unionize workers. I don't really know anything about syndicalism, honestly. Yeah, I don't really know much about this, honestly. I mean, it's got the word national in it, so it's already not the greatest, but that's fine. Yeah, national should already be a dead giveaway. It's hard to tell these days, you know? It's hard to tell these days. Honestly. Do not trust our ancient ancestors. They were all tricked by the fallen angels. Oh, no, sorry, fallen angles. My bad. Apparently parents that have the right to their children are now far right. Weird. Stop raising your consciousness? Nah. Decolonize? Yeah, that I could go along with. Could go along with that. TikTok's wild, man. I can't imagine what it would be like if I was just doing TikTok. Like, it's just like, yeah, like, and it's just like damn, that's a mite beard, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm well aware of it. Karl Marx, a closet capitalist who loves money. Weird. Would the communist country you want vote? Yeah, all communist countries vote. China votes. Like, the Soviet Union held votes. Like, they held elections. The electoral system isn't the Westminster parliamentary democracy. It's not our system, but they voted. It's a statement Trudeau just made. The definition is washboarded completely. I don't even know what you're talking about. Hollow brains roam this app. There's something that you would hear in like a video game. You'd be playing a video game about an app, and it would be like, hollow brains roam this app. Then they'd give you like the pen of truth. Take this wherever you're going, and be like a writing game. China made the leader for life. That's absolutely not how the system works in China. That I strongly recommend you Google the National People's Assembly, or the National People's Congress, my mistake. and you can find out pretty fast what the electoral system in China actually is and what it actually looks like. Fascist Portugal was a national syndicalist nation. Nationalist Spain was a semi-national syndicalist nation. National syndicalism is basically Iberian fascism. Fantastic. Thanks, Command Genius. I appreciate that, dude. I appreciate that. It's see, this is what I like about this, is that I don't know everything, but there's always somebody in the chat that seems to know something about something. So thanks, bud. I appreciate it. To that person that said that they were a national syndicalist, maybe stop. If you think that I'm based, if you are listening to me and you are thinking to yourself, this guy sounds like he makes sense and all that kind of stuff, maybe look up the works of Karl Marx. Maybe give the Communist Manifesto a try, okay? Like, put aside what the CIA has said about it. Put aside all that. Just read the Communist Manifesto. Type into YouTube right now, the Communist Manifesto. Listen to the Communist Manifesto. Right? Maybe give it a try, okay? I celebrate Stalin. Yep, he defeated the Nazis, first people into space. I think Stalin was a fine leader. They are all controlled by the CCP. Oh man, I wish. I wish I was controlled by the CCP. I'd be doing much better financially. I think my life would be a lot better if I was controlled by the CCP. Anything but communism. Wow, anything? Anything, eh? Like anything. China only votes on a local level. Like, and? I don't even know what that means. They should incorporate gulags to Canadian right. These are things that are being said. These are things that are being said. Yeah. Bill, that's exactly right. They tell on themselves when they say anything but. Anything but communism. Anything, eh? Anything but communism. Interesting take. Interesting take. Stalin was such a fine leader, he put people in space and starved half his population. What's your source for that, okay? I'd like to see a source for that claim, okay? Like, Stalin intentionally starved half his population. What's the source for that, okay? You should be able to, should be a very easy source to find, by the way. Like for real. You're telling me that Stalin starved half his population. Okay, there should be an academic somewhere. There should be a university, like University of Virginia, right? The Michigan Institute of Technology, right? Harvard, Oxford, Yale. There should be somebody who published a book, right? So I'd really like to know your source for that. Because I got to tell you, I know there isn't one, so I'll be very surprised if you can find one. But please do spend your time trying to find one, so that you yourself can come to the realization that your claim is wrong. Universities are Marxist institutions, bro, and as embarrassing a statement as I've ever seen. As embarrassing a statement as I've ever seen. Harvard is not a Marxist institution. Harvard is not a Marxist institution. To make the claim that Harvard is a Marxist institution is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Source for it being embarrassing? Checkmate, bro. You got me. You got me. You're about as bright as Biden? Bud, that's a great one. That's good. You know, here in America, I think that the most important thing about America is that it is America. I don't do a very good Biden, but... interesting question. Fat Kid Cowboy asks, why does communism need to be so heavily and militarily enforced in past history? It's because communism has always come into being in nations against imperial and capitalist forces. And in some cases, in the case of the Soviet Union, for example, it was straight up monarchy, right? Like the Tsars were in charge. And so communists have needed to be militant and organized militarily in the past because they were literally fighting against imperial forces, like imperial armies, right? Opinion on Trudeau, he's a floofy haircut that reads from the fossil fuel industry. Yeah, starved half the population. Russians overthrew the Tsar for less. What? Yeah, exactly, dude. Like this the absurdity of the claim, right? Like it gets really Like it's the same thing as like when they say Mao killed 100 million people. It'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Chinese people vote for their party representatives. Their representatives go on to vote for their leadership. Yeah, exactly. Russia won their revolution and then immediately got invaded by all of the imperialist countries. Yeah. That's definitely also part of it, right? Like communist nations of the past have had to be militant. Because if they aren't militant, they get destroyed by systems of capital. I see, Chrissy. I see what you're saying. They're vetted by the CCP. I mean, like they don't want CIA spooks, right? Like they know that spooks are trying to get involved into the system, and so they need to vet them. And it's completely like once you understand the history of capitalism and the history of imperialism, you would believe that it was completely reasonable. Like it's totally reasonable to be like, yeah, we're not going to let capitalists in this game. We're definitely not letting capitalists in here. That's not happening. And you'd realize that the moment you understood the system of capital and the history of capital. Yep. Rent's due in 10 days. Get ready. Yep. Communism doesn't work, which is why capitalist imperialist nations spend billions on bombing and killing communist nations. Exactly. That system fails by itself, so we're going to spend $1 billion to knock it over. That's right. That makes sense. That's a logical thing. And Thomas Sankara to some degree, unfortunately. The man was too trusting of his best friend. Yeah, a big problem that communists have is that they keep giving the benefit of the doubt to capitalists. They keep doing this. And you see it all throughout communist history, where communists will fall for this idea of like, well, they can't be that bad. They can't be totally psychotic. And the answer is that yes, they can. They can be totally psychotic. That most of the time when something really bad happens in a communist nation, it's because the communist leadership has given the capitalists the benefit of the doubt. And we got to stop that. Like, we got to stop that. These people are psychopaths. Like, they're crazed lunatics. They will absolutely do everything in their power to destroy you. Absolutely. Greed is the problem. Communism fails. Capitalism can fail too, but it's less likely to fail as hard. Womp, 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 womp. Capitalism has a collapse about once every 7 to 8 years. Once every 7 to 8 years, capitalism collapses and is propped up by you, basically. And the working class is essentially told to eat it. And so this idea that capitalism doesn't fail, and when it fails less. Like, what are you talking about? 2008, there was a global financial collapse that collapsed the entire system to the ground. Like, neoliberalism does not equal capitalism. Adorable. Most of the Tiananmen Square protesters were communists who hated the dentist reform. You probably mean dangest reform. Well, and what we think we know about the Tiananmen Square protest is pretty wrong, frankly. You want an actual argument? Okay, neoliberalism is not capitalism. Yes, it is. Neoliberalism is a form of capitalism. Like, it is, obviously. You just basically said the sky is not the sky. So, source, looking at it. Your literal eyes. Like, you got to be in kind of a form of delusional dementia to think that neoliberalism is not capitalism. Yeah, watch Margin Call. Capitalism failed. I also like The Big Short. The Big Short's a really good one. Wait, if communism fails, then all my tax dollars funding imperialist wars is even more of a waste of money. Yeah, exactly. If capitalism fails, then boy, are we ever wasting our money. What a waste of taxpayer dollars. Communism doesn't work, so we're going to go starve and deny healthcare to our own people to raise money to destroy communist countries. Yep. All of it. How is it wrong? You can't even talk about it in China today, so how can you act like the info is concrete? I don't actually know what you're talking about, okay? Like, what is it that you can't talk about in China today? I suspect that you probably don't know what you're talking about. It's not a failure, it's designed this way. Oh yeah, that Sky Preacher, you're right. Yeah, capitalism is not a failure. It's designed this way. It's built to steal labor. Correct. Correct. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, Eric says, that's such an ignorant statement to say neoliberalism isn't capitalism when you have literally Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek who both promoted it as the ideal system. And implemented it with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. Like, thank you, Eric. I knew I didn't need to think too hard on that, you know? Like, I knew that I was just going to say these things out loud and that somebody in my chat was going to be like, wait a minute. There's somebody actually trying to make the statement that neoliberalism is not capitalism when you literally have Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek promoting it and implementing it with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. But it's not capitalism. But it's not capitalism, you guys. Sure, it was promoted by capitalists and defended as a capitalist system by capitalists and then implemented by capitalists in a capitalist system, but it is not capitalism. Like, this world we live in, man. This world we live in. I'm actually kind of enjoying interacting with TikTok right now, I gotta tell you. I feel like I'm just in a good mood. I think that's what it is. I think I'm just in a good mood. So, I don't think... communism has killed millions, but okay. Stop listening to the CIA, Andrew. Okay, bud? The Black Book of Communism is bullshit. Even the people that wrote it thought it was bullshit. Like... And this sort of embarrassing idea that communism has killed millions, well, literally the last 40 years of American warfare, like, America has invaded the world, and you're being like, communism has killed millions, blah, blah. It's like, it's just like, there just comes a point where I gotta be like, do you even, like, look at what your own country is doing? You ask us for sources, but don't give any sources. You haven't asked for sources. I mean, you have asked for sources, but for, like, really, really dumb things. Communists don't understand the value of sweat equity. Why shouldn't somebody keep what they earn? The entire purpose of communism, the entire idea of communism is that capitalism is taking your surplus value. Capitalists take your surplus value, and you should keep your own surplus value. That's like the entire linchpin idea of communism. And you've inverted it. Because you listen to the CIA. I am sure you said already, but give me one book to read. On what subject, dude? Because if you just ask me for, like, a book, it's the Communist Manifesto. Like, what is my source for Mao not starving his people? So you can't prove a negative, right? You can't prove a negative. It's up to you to find a source for that claim, right? You're the one making the claim Mao killed 1 million people or killed 100 million people by starving them, so you need to source it. I can give you a good source. If you come to my YouTube channel, I can literally give you the source. I got to be careful with this kind of stuff because TikTok will ban me because it's run by NATO operatives. Where is the good one? Come on. That's the Holodomor. Come on, John. Come on, John. John. Oh, I'm failing so hard right now, you guys. Oh, there it is. Type into Google revisiting alleged 30 million famine deaths during China's Great Leap. It's an article by Utsa Patniak, who is a economist from the University of come on now. She's a Marxist economist in India. This article is published in People's Democracy and reproduced, blah, 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 blah. And she she goes through the evidence. I trust people who use evidence. That's who I trust. I trust people who use evidence. And when you use evidence, you are trustworthy, right? Like it's not about trusting somebody because they are of a strata or of a class. It's about trusting evidence. And if you are, dude, I wish my assistant was Greta Thunberg. Are you kidding me? This channel will be so much better. This channel will be running so much more. Oh, Black Shirts and Reds. That's another good one. Black Shirts and Reds. Yeah, I know. I gotta organize the bookmarks. Friggin' Seraphim. You don't need to point it out. You don't need to just tell everybody. You don't need to point it out, Seraphim. Jeez. Black Shirts and Reds is a really good read. Honestly, the work of Michael Parenti generally. Like, Michael Parenti is his lectures. If you're sitting there being like, I'm looking for a good source, here seems to be a guy who seems to think he knows what he's doing and all that kind of stuff. Michael Parenti is a place to go, for sure. Communists or fascists who lie about it, embarrassing. Just embarrassing, dude. Like, only his evidence is valid according to him. No, evidence is valid. Like, you've got to use evidence. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can... Like, do you not know what evidence is? Like, do you not understand the concept of evidence? Canada is fascism nowadays, I would say. I don't know that I don't think Canada's gone full-blown fascist, but it's definitely like neoliberalism is pretty bad, right? Like, define fascism. So I use Mussolini's definition. That Mussolini said that fascism is better called corporatism because it is the merger of business and state. And you see a lot of that today. So something like a public-private partnership, what's called a public-partner-privateship, embarrassing. You know Mussolini was a socialist, right? Embarrassing. Like, that's the most... Dude, you need to stop talking. Like, that's about as embarrassing as it gets. Like, F- circle, see me after class, okay? Like, embarrassing. Mussolini called himself a fascist. He wrote about the goodness of fascism. You can read the works of Mussolini. Like, the idea that Mussolini was a socialist is embarrassing. Like, Cesis is watching you. I hope so. Hi, Cesis. Get a better job, okay, bud? Like, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is bad and wrong. You're supporting an imperialist death cult. You should stop. Embarrassing? It's true. You can Google it. Okay. Was Mussolini a socialist? So, literally, Benito Mussolini, an Italian dictator and journalist who founded and led the National Fascist Party. It's right here. It's like on his Wikipedia page. It's like literally line 1. Founded and led the National Fascist Party. Oh, so before... Okay, who cares? Like, who cares? But before that guy was a rapist, he was a really good guy. Who cares? I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care at all. Like, oh, so he abandoned his socialism to become a fascist. Okay. Like, so what? Like, all you're saying to me is at one point he was a good person and then he decided to become a bad person. Like, I don't give a shit at all. Do I have an iPhone? Obviously. You need an iPhone to survive in this environment. iPhones are cheap. And they're made by workers. Hey, John, how you doing? I love this argument that says, you have an iPhone, therefore you're being a hypocrite. Like, no, workers make these iPhones, dude. Like, it's capital that takes the surplus value from the worker. Right? Dude, this Smiles guy is hilarious, man. Like, I'm sorry your dad yelled at you today, dude. Every phone is made by workers. What does that even mean? Yeah. Like, what the argument usually is by capitalists, and you hear this on like Joe Rogan, is like, but they're using iPhones and capitalism made iPhones, so they're being hypocrites. It's like, no. iPhones are made by workers, right? Right? Like, iPhones are made by workers. Like, we're talking about how capital takes the surplus value from the working class. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about what workers make. Like, yourmom.com says, love the beard, bro. Thanks. Ugh, no iPhone. Mussolini in his early life was associated with certain leftist groups. It's not significant. He died a fascist. Yeah. Well, and he led as a fascist. Like, I don't understand why we're supposed to give a shit, like, about how he betrayed his socialist roots. Like, in fact, it makes it worse, doesn't it? Midnight Rose. I'm sure the feudal lord also saw the irony in being killed by the tools that his serfs used. Yeah. Like, this whole line of argument that says that you're being a hypocrite because you're using things that capitalism made. It's embarrassing. Like, first of all, workers made those things. And that what capitalists do is steal the surplus value from the worker, right? And pilfer it for themselves. It's how you end up with a billionaire class, right? The billionaires are not billionaires because they're super geniuses. They're not billionaires because they're like super smart, right? Unless you consider being skillful thieves intelligent, which I guess, in a way, I suppose it is. But like, they are exploiting the position of the working class. China only works because of capitalism in the West. No communist country works. No, China calls itself socialist with Chinese characteristics, and its goal is to move towards communism. That they have had to negotiate with the capitalist West in order to prevent war. Like, people always forget that China's reforms, like Dengist reforms, essentially happen as America is destroying Southeast Asia. That the bombing of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and North Korea, like, they literally carpet bombed those countries and destroyed all of its infrastructure. They killed like 20% of the population of Korea. Like, they dropped so many bombs in Laos. There are bombs that are in Laos that haven't exploded. They dropped something like 10 bombs for every citizen that lived in Laos. And so this idea that, so what China is doing during this period of time of opening its borders up to capitalism is it's saying, please don't bomb us. Like, you don't need to go to war with us. We'll work with you. We'll work with you, right? We'll be trading partners. We'll negotiate. And of course, trade is peace, and so it's a fine strategy, and it's completely worked. It's completely worked for the communists. That the Americans basically shipped all their manufacturing over to China. Like, the whole purpose of communism is to seize the means of production, and China talked America into giving it to them. Like, and so now what we're seeing is an ascendant China that has raised up because because the Chinese Communist Party has planned and organized within China, working with the situation that they have to work with, living in reality. Like, one of the major criticisms I have of Western communists and Western Marxists is that they essentially are falling into a purity cult. They're essentially falling into this idea that if you're not pursuing a path of pure communism, then it's not communism at all. And I'm like, I don't go along with that at all. I think that you've got to deal with reality as it's in front of you. And the reality that the Chinese were looking at was a threatening American power that was obviously bombing the shit out of Southeast Asia with the stated goal of staunching the spread of communism. Like, the Americans were saying out loud, we are doing this to stop the spread of communism, and they were massacring and murdering millions of people in Southeast Asia in order to do it. Like, the history of those wars kind of speaks for itself, and you should just admit you hate America. I mean, yeah, I do hate America, and your race. I mean, I don't really bring race into it, but like, I'm not proud of being white. Like, it's not a thing that matters to me. Like, I happen to be randomly generated this way. If I was to make a social critique of it, I'd be like, yeah, like, being white is the best position. Like, it is. Like, the cops leave you alone. You know, when you're walking around in supermarkets, people don't follow you around. That kind of thing. Smiles, here's an embarrassing thing that you've just said. I wonder why. Maybe it's because the North was going to kill everyone in South Vietnam. The reason why there is a North and South Vietnam at all is because of American imperialism. Right? Like, there used to be a place called Vietnam. Right? Just how there used to be a place called Korea. Typical Redditor neckbeard. Nice. I don't think that's a typical beard. I think I've got a pretty good beard, actually. And it's not really a neck beard. Like, I've got a... Well, that's a good beard, man. Like, neck beard sort of implies that I don't have anything going on here, right? Like, that it's just like the chin strap, kind of like the Amish thing. No, this is a good beard. This is not a neck beard, my man. Why don't I shave? Because I like the beard. I think I do need to control. I keep doing this, and I think I do want to clean this up a little bit more. I think so. Dear Capitalist, please explain why we need shareholders to properly allocate the resources necessary for technological innovation. Yeah. Every day there's at least some poor soul who comes to the show to defend their capitalist masters who are exploiting them. Yeah. I'm not for capitalists, but I think the reason is probably because shareholders are the ones with all the money and land and stuff. So what other choice is there? Yeah. Snake, good to see you, bud. I really want to read The Purity Fetish. Yeah. I think I might actually pick it up. That's one from Midwestern Marx. Midwestern Marx, Eddie, I forget his last name, but he wrote a book, a critique of Western Marxism. And it is about this concept, the purity fetish. And I tend to agree with him that we have a purity fetish. And what's shocking about the purity fetish of Western Marxists is that we are not in a position. Like, we have never successfully organized a revolution of any sort. We are not positioned to criticize any other nation. Like, I find that when the West and Western Marxists get into critiquing Chinese communism, it's like critiquing Magnus Carlsen in chess. Like, you just don't do it. Magnus Carlsen is probably the greatest chess player that ever lived, and is alive right now, and is probably going to be alive for another 30 years playing chess. You learn. He is the master. If he does something that you think is unusual, then you try to figure out why he did it, because he's right and you're not. By that same token, America does have some socialist programs implemented, food and housing subsidies. I will agree those social programs are not efficient, do not help people out of poverty, yeah. Midnight Rose writes, the Vietnamese overwhelmingly voted for the communists, and then the United States came in, stopped everything, and set up a puppet government. Same case in Korea. Yep. Like, the reason why there's a North and South Korea, the reason why there's a North and South Vietnam, is because of American imperialism. And that the American imperialists went in and created those circumstances. Like, it's really, really, really embarrassing to pretend like that didn't happen. It's a darn fine, impressive beard, full mountain man. Yeah, I don't know if I'm about mountain man. I just think it's got too wide. I think that's all it is. And I think when I do this, I rather like this look. Like, that looks kind of nice. So I think I need to get this thing a little bit under control. But it's nice to let it go for a little while. I'll read The Purity Fetish and make a critique of it as a Maoist. Yeah, as you should, Command Genius. Good to see you too, John. I believe Carlos Garrido wrote it, but your beard and the spirit of Marx coming out of you. Oh, really? I think it's just that I know that Midwestern Marx has recently written that book. Didn't he quit Magnus Carlsen? If Magnus Carlsen quit, I don't know about it. But I wouldn't be surprised. That usually happens. That usually does happen to people who get to his level. That's what Bobby Fischer did. That happened to Bobby Fischer. That he eventually was just like, he kind of got tired of chess. And recently, and by recently I mean within the last 5 years or 10 years even, Bobby Fischer played a game online with someone. And my favorite part about the game is that Bobby Fischer's first moves were king, pawn, forward one space, king, forward one space, king, diagonal, king, diagonal, king, diagonal, king, diagonal, king back into his space. Those were Bobby Fischer's first moves against like a grandmaster. And he ended up winning that game anyway. Yeah, Bobby Fischer lost his mind. Of course he did. No, we can all agree on that. For sure. Although it's fun listening to him. I love listening to Bobby Fischer interviews. Like, he's great. Like, I'm with you. Like, he lost his mind, but he's great. They repeat a lot of CIA talking points or lib terms like authoritarianism, sure. Yeah, whatever happened to Fischer, dude just, like, lives his life. More or less. Just chills out. He had some interesting ideas about how to reform the game of chess and make it more interesting. His number one complaint about chess is that it basically became that if you memorized the opening moves, that chess does have, there are just better ways to play a game of chess. And that was his big critique of chess in the end, is that it's like, if this guy does this move, you do this move. If this guy does this move, you do this move. And as long as you know that, then you're just going to be a better chess player. And I think that's why when he played that one game, he did this like really brazen, overtly obvious bad series of moves, because I think he loves the creativity of chess and he loves that aspect of it, and I think he wanted to set himself up to force his game to be that way, that this guy was going to do this kind of opening and I'm going to basically have nothing. And I really, Bobby Fischer's wild that way. That's why I never really got into chess that much. Too much formal moves and patterns. I never learned. I just thought, you know what I play chess for? I play chess. I usually play about 2 games of chess a night on chess.com. And I do it to keep me humble. Because chess is a game that, if you lose a game of chess, it's because you lost. And there's nothing, you can't hide. There's nothing you can say. Like every other kind of game that you play, you can hide. You can hide behind something. So take like a game like League of Legends, right? Like something ubiquitous that we're all familiar with, right? You lose a game of League of Legends, there's 100 things that you can point at that are not you, right? You could be like, this guy did this and my jungle never came and all this kind of stuff. And you can always blame it on something. And that can create a kind of pattern of arrogance. You can get into a real arrogant space of like, I'm perfect, everybody else is the problem. Chess doesn't let you do that. Chess does not let you do that. If you lose a game of chess, it's because you lost. It's because you were worse than the other guy. Period. No bullshit at all. And you are fundamentally grappling with another person's mind. And so that's why I always end up playing chess. I play chess because it's like, I gotta remind myself sometimes, it's like, right, bro, like you are mediocre at this stuff. Like you're just okay. You are just okay. I believe Kasparov, when he lost to Watson, he kind of said something similar. He was like, I went in that game feeling arrogant. I went into that game feeling indestructible and arrogant. And then he came back and beat Watson. So I think it's an important game for that reason, because it's humbling. It reminds you that you are limited, there is a limit to your scope, but it also reminds you that you can improve, that it's possible at any moment in your life to improve, to get better. And I've seen that in myself, that my experience with chess has been one of a decline and then an increase. And I can kind of track my mental focus and my mental desire by how my rating goes in chess, right? That when I'm kind of on the up and up, I'm feeling mentally strong, I'm feeling mentally good, I'm feeling focused, I'm feeling like I can learn. When I'm on the decline, I can acknowledge that, oh yeah, you know, I am sort of tired and I'm not playing well and all those sorts of things. Methane says, I used to play against someone who was much better than me, and he had the moves down, the strategies, and he hated when I would rarely win sometimes. Says I was too unpredictable. Yeah. Well, that is what lots of grandmasters actually say, that grandmasters will occasionally lose to people who are fairly low ranked, because low ranked people will do stupid things. Like, they'll do the thing you're not supposed to do. Isaac says every CIA coup in Latin America has resulted in the death of about 30 to 80,000 people. Thousands have disappeared, end up in dungeons. Yeah. No single country that hasn't been coup. Yeah. Kasparov is a bastard imperialist right-wing douche. Unfortunately, he was one of the greatest. Yeah. Well, League is also a game where if you're actually better than the people you're playing with, you can win like 60% of your games and still climb. It's not entirely team-based like people whine about. Not in solo queue, at least. Yeah, but come on, man. How many times have you played a game of League where you've like grinded mobs in solo lane for 15 minutes and then it's an immediate surrender? How many games of League have you played where it's been like that? Like, that's what's annoying about League of Legends. It's like, you wait 10 minutes to get into a game, you wait 15 minutes grinding away on mobs, and then it's an immediate surrender one way or the other. Anyway. Enough about fucking League and enough about games and chess and stuff. John says, have I read The Shock Doctrine? I have. I read The Shock Doctrine when I was in high school, I believe. It was either in high school or university, I forget. But I read The Shock Doctrine, yep. Probably Naomi Klein's greatest work. That by the time I got around to reading No Logo, I feel like No Logo had already become kind of ubiquitous. Like, everybody kind of confirmed, like, No Logo is right. And so everybody kind of talked about No Logo and used the language of No Logo already. So when I was reading No Logo, I was like, oh, I'm already extremely familiar with all of these ideas. But The Shock Doctrine was a real, like, she was the first person to really put into my mind this idea that, like, yeah, capitalists are psychos. Like, they're not passively doing stuff. That's all right, dude. Anytime's good. It's all good, man. People should read Patriots, Traitors, and Empires. Fantastic. Dude, Ostrich, I gotta tell you, man, you are in my chat more often than anybody else, and you always say the weirdest shit, dude. Like, why are you here? Like, why are you here, my man? What are you getting out of this? Like, for real. Like, it's really strange, you know? And I don't really engage with you that often because, yeah, it's good to hear the other side. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, I think the strangest thing that's happened in the modern discourse is that somehow the far left and the far right have become considered equivalents with one another. That, like, groups of people saying, I would like to eliminate homelessness, I would like to eliminate poverty, are considered the same as people who are saying, I want to round up minority groups and put them in camps. That somehow those two things have become the same. I think that that's the strangest thing that's going on in today's society. Like, it's pretty amazing to watch, frankly. It's pretty amazing to watch. Oof. All right, guys, I think I'm going to call this one early. My voice is kind of tired. I think I might just go to sleep. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.